As you probably know, we get updates to Hurricane Irma every few hours, and Danny is tracking those. You've been all over them. Danny got one just about 15 minutes ago. What can you tell us?
No major change. We're just updating the position of Irma. And right now located 110 miles north, I should say the center 110 miles north of Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. What that means is, remember, the tropical storm force wind field is about 185 miles outside of the center, which means Dominican Republic is getting those tropical storm force winds, but the hurricane force wind extending about 50 miles outside of the center. So hopefully the worst of it spared in terms of Dominican Republic. Unfortunately for Turks and Caicos, which is where the center of Irma is headed next, it looks like conditions are going to deteriorate rapidly, and there's the potential for that eye to head over Turks and Caicos as it tracks into the Bahamas. As it stands right now, wind speeds are about 180 miles per hour. And it's about 600 miles away from the Florida Peninsula. Here's that track. No update in the 8 a.m. update in terms of the track. It's looking the same. Wind speed's the same as well at 180 miles per hour, moving west-northwest at 17 miles per hour. It looks to sustain that Category 5 classification as we head into the next couple of days. At some point, hopefully dropping into a Category 4, but before making that turn north, which again is everything in terms of potential impacts for Southwest Florida. As it stands right now, which I do need to tell you, you can still see the cone of air. The cone of uncertainty includes all of Florida. But as it stands right now, this official track verifies it looks like a landfall is likely for southeast Florida. But what it also means is preparations do not stop in southwest Florida, because tropical storm force winds will be impacting all of southwest Florida, considering they extend 185 miles outside of the center. So if the center is located over southeast Florida, we are definitely included in that tropical storm force wind field. And in fact, our inland counties could be included in the hurricane force wind field. So don't slow those preparations just because it looks like the most severe impacts could be on the East Coast as it stands right now. It's time to finish those preparations as we head into the weekend. Timeline Saturday to Monday. So Saturday evening for Southwest Florida through Monday morning seems to be the worst of it, with the brunt of Irma on Sunday. Here are those updated spaghetti plots. So all of the forecast models, type clustering, having that shift north. A few models still bringing it up the west side of the coast, but you can see heavily favored for the east side of the Florida Peninsula, with the tightest clustering hugging the coastline. Few model runs shift it further east, which would be great news for the Florida Peninsula. But we have to go with where the trend is, and right now it's right up the east coast. Here's the European model. This particular model, this run of this model, has landfall near Miami, but you can still see we are definitely in the tropical storm force wind field, and our inland area is the hurricane force wind field, sliding up the east coast and then heading out as we head into Monday, Tuesday. The GFS a little further east. This probably giving you flashbacks of Matthew, right? Keeping the core just offshore. But even in this scenario, we're still seeing tropical storm force winds all across Southwest Florida. So the key here, preparations, don't put them off now. Don't slow them down. Time to wrap them up. We're talking tropical storm force winds of 40 to 60, potentially 65 miles per hour sustained, which could certainly do damage. And for the hurricane force wind field, we're talking 75 plus in terms of sustained winds. Ensemble plots here. So this is the American model run again a bunch of different times with 1 or 2 factor change. You can see the tightest clustering right up the east coast, which is means that's where the trend is right now. Few of those runs pushing further east, a couple still up the west coast, but we have to look where the trend is, which is the tightest clustering, and it's right up the east coast of the Florida Peninsula. Still subject to change, still a little bit of time, but we have to go with where it stands right now, and that's the information that I'm trying to convey. Where it stands right now, looks like landfall possible on the east coast, but we're still looking at a threat here in southwest Florida. It's all due to the driving steering factors in the atmosphere. Again, that ridge of high pressure of the Atlantic. You can see that Irma is sliding right up along it. It'll turn north as soon as it can. We're also looking at this trough, this dip in the jet stream, and these waves of energy that are going to sweep down across the country. You can see them here, and hopefully push Irma a little further east and pull her north as we head into Monday, Tuesday. So those are your steering factors between the different models. Those are the factors at play at this point. So here's the bottom line. East Coast landfall is looking more and more likely. Track not set in stone. It could potentially shift a little further west or east, and 25 miles is everything on the Florida Peninsula. But as for right now, an East Coast landfall is likely, but tropical storm conditions are expected in Southwest Florida, so prepare for that. Don't slow preparations. We could still see potentially damaging winds 40 to 60 miles per hour as it stands right now. If the track shifts any further west, we would see worse damage than that. If it shifts further east, probably still looking at the tropical storm force wind field unless there's a major shift, which at this point doesn't look likely. Time frame, Saturday evening to Monday morning for Southwest Florida, the worst conditions on Sunday. Let's get to the tropical storm force winds, right? So this is the likelihood, and this is why we're thinking plan on it, bet on the tropical storm force winds. We're looking at a 70, 80, 90% chance, and even higher, of course, for our inland areas, but this includes even the coastal portions of Lee, Collier, and I would bet eventually all of Charlotte as well. So plan for those winds sustained 40 to 60%. That means preparations still need to be made, but hurricane force wind field is going to be solely dependent on a 20, 25, 50 mile shift depending on where that eye is. If the eye slides right up the coast, we could see our inland spots get those hurricane force winds, and right now the chance for that is right around 50%. So we'll of course update you as those updates become available. For your Thursday forecast, quiet and calm out there this morning, completely dry, seasonal setup. Perfect day to finish those preparations, right? We start dry, mix of sun and clouds through this afternoon with scattered storms developing during the second half of the day. Here's your 7-day forecast. Today, tomorrow, about the same. And then those conditions this weekend will be dependent on Irma's eventual track. Right now, count on the tropical storm force winds and, of course, rain as well, with conditions improving middle of next week as Irma continues to track north.
We know a lot